Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
Exploring the unexplained.
Breaking down barriers.
Putting the macabre under the microscope.
Dissecting the disturbing.
Seeking out the sinister.
Bringing you the jinkies and the jump scares.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Freaky Friday with your hosts Megan
and Devin.
And this week we're going to be, as you so amazingly put it, digging up some stories for you.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about some scary holes in the earth.
To make that sound better, there are times man should just not interfere. And in these cases, I think both stories revolved around mankind digging in places they shouldn't to uncover things they probably should not.
I mean, I think as humans we're all super curious and sometimes we just can't help ourselves.
Yeah, that is our nature, unfortunately.
Well, the saying is curiosity killed the cat.
So I think I'm going to kick us off, and it's an urban legend that has creeped out many people, including myself, and that is the 1989 Russian Siberian Hole that was dug. I think some people may have heard of the story, but if you haven't...
I feel like I've heard pieces of this, but I don't know the full story, so I'm really keen to hear this.
So the way the story goes is some Russian scientists in Siberia drilled a hole, I think something like 14.5 kilometers deep into the earth. And the engineers who were working on this were searching for oil and natural gas, and then ended up finding all these rare geological formations and even gold in addition to the oil and gas. And they became eager to see what else they could get out of this. And so they kept digging.
Mistake number one.
And then one day, the drill bit suddenly broke through into this cavity and started rotating wildly, obviously not meeting any resistance anymore. And they could feel they were obviously in some cavity because there's nothing that is going through. So geologists and the engineers apparently at this moment stopped the drill and raised it out and felt this blast of heat, like searing heat which gushed out of the hole, and also thought they'd heard some faint sounds, but nothing definite. So they lowered these temperature gauges down to measure the heat coming out of the hole, and what the temperatures registered were 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 1,100 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
If you just try and imagine how hot that is.
That is insane.
At this point, I think all the scientists believed they had penetrated the molten center of the Earth.
Yeah, that's the first place my mind went to. I was like, damn, how far did they dig?
They did. They drew that uncomfortable hypothesis that first of all, the center of Earth at this point was hollow, and second of all, they had just drilled into it. They then, just because I said they'd heard some weird sounds, they lowered down these temperature-resistant microphones down into the hole to try and gather what information they could, and actually a whole array of other measuring tools as well, which all only lasted about 17 seconds before everything melted.
What?
And they got about 17 seconds of audio out of those microphones, but they were quite a horrifying 17 seconds. Because the microphones returned something more terrifying than what was originally thought, which they thought they would hear maybe plates moving or gas flows. But what they had actually recorded was these terrifying screams of the damned.
What?
Like agonizing screams of millions of people suffering really violent shouts, people in terrible agony, which obviously threw everybody. Everybody was so shocked and horrified at this. And I mean, scientists immediately, it's not all of them, but a lot of them jumped to the conclusion that they had not drilled into the center of the earth. They drilled somehow into hell.
That's kind of a weird conclusion for scientists to draw, because I feel like they're very logical
That's what I'm saying.
So it must have been pretty freaking terrifying for them to jump to the conclusion like we drilled into hell.
I think it was such a distinct... I've heard the audio. It's chilling. It really does. Like, I can't listen to it for long. It affects me a little bit.
Really?
But I think, yeah, to hear something like that, there is no logical explanation. It's not even like I could put... when I heard about this, I thought maybe it just sounds like that, but you can kind of hear it's not. When you hear it, there's no questioning it. You can hear people screaming in agony, thousands and thousands of voices.
I vaguely remember, I'm not sure if it's the same thing, but when I was still at varsity, I remember one of our sound guys saying that he had this clip that you apparently can't listen to for more than a certain amount of time, and people who have forced themselves to listen longer have actually gone insane. And I remember him playing a piece of it, and I was like, stop, dude. Like,
what I don't know if what you listened to was what I listened to, but it unnerves you, and it's just it's really disturbing.
I just remember getting a feeling of like, I can't anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we shouldn't be listening to
That's
this.
exactly the feeling I get as well. And many scientists actually just quit the job site then and there.
Yeah, I would have been one of them.
So this story didn't actually circulate around too much until I think it was in 2002. Art Bell of Coast to Coast AM received a copy of the recording
Just
from
casually.
one of his listeners, along with a message. And this is because they'd briefly actually talked about the supposed Siberian hole to hell. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm going to just quote what this message said. I just recently began listening to your radio show and could not believe it when you talked about the sounds from hell tonight. My uncle told me the story a couple of years ago and I didn't believe him. Like one of your listeners who discounted the story as nothing more than just a religious newspaper fabricated account. The story about the digging, the hearing sounds from hell, is very real. It did occur in Siberia. My uncle collected videos on the paranormal and supernatural, and he passed away fairly recently. He let me listen to the one audio tape that he had on the sounds from hell in Siberia, and I copied it. He received this copy from a friend who worked at the BBC. Attached is that sound from my uncle's tape, and she'd attached her cassette tape with these sounds.
Wow.
For sensitive viewers out there, maybe skip over the next few seconds, but I think we'll just give you guys a taste of what this sounds like. And this is the sounds of the damned coming from this hell. I think we'll cut it there.
Yeah, I don't think we need much more than that. That sort of drives it home. That is, again, I've got insane goosebumps all up my arms, like all up the back of my neck.
You see, I think from something like that, you can't put that down to anything like rocks moving or mechanical or anything like that. Just, it's so blatant.
I mean, just, can you imagine? I mean, I'm just getting goosebumps listening to it now, but can you imagine being there the first time you played that recording back?
I would be one of those scientists that quit.
Peace out, I'm leaving.
I would not be able to stick around for that.
That is insane. Absolutely insane.
So supposedly those who did decide to stay had another shocking surprise waiting for them. Some geologists witnessing that, as I said, they stuck around and apparently that night witnessed a sort of satanic apparition rise from the hole. So supposedly what happened was as it got to night, the hole started glowing and this strange luminous gas appeared out of it. And the smoke eventually formed into something closely resembling a winged demon. And near it, like right near the hole. And apparently this burning phrase appeared, there's different accounts of it. Some say in the sky, some say like on the ground. Others say they heard this come out of the actual smoke. Anyway, the line was, "I have conquered." To me, that part of it does sound a little fabricated.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Scooby-Doo movie right there.
I mean, it's certainly like, it adds the supernatural flair, but yeah, I'm sort of with you. It doesn't sound that plausible.
What further stretches it is they then said that medics that were on site then treated everyone with a mild sedative to erase their memories of it. So that to me, we're starting to go out on a little...
Yeah. I mean, I might believe like seeing an apparition or something, but this whole thing of "I have conquered," like, okay, calm down, James Wan. Like, that literally sounds like some hectic horror movie that's been concocted.
It does. But anyway, so this crater, this hole, they've actually named and I might butcher this, I apologize, Batagiaka hole.
Again, you're looking at me like I know, and I honestly don't.
And the locals like approach it with caution because they keep hearing these ominous sounds. For me, if I'd been living in a town close by this hole, I would have moved. There's no way I could comfortably stay anywhere near that.
I'm looking at you right now like they didn't just fill this hole up.
Oh, no, they did. It's still very much there today. I think it's the deepest hole on Earth right now.
Why?
Obviously, once the story got out, religious people all over the world saw this as definite proof of like a physical sign of hell. Others went to try to debunk it. It's all really up to your own opinion of what you think of this, but I know in more recent years there's been some scary stories around it because this happened quite back in the day actually, and more recently there's been these satellite images showing just this part of Siberia. Suddenly, like, there are a lot of wildfires around this hole, and I think, from what I understand, if these fires, they're not exactly on or like next to the hole, but if they get any closer than they'll cause what they call the mouth of hell to open wider, because they'll destabilize the ground. From what I understand, the Siberian soil is made of permafrost, which is perennial soil which has been frozen for 2 or more consecutive years. So obviously with the heating up of just the earth's temperature and being exposed to things like the sun and fire does cause the ground to become unstable. And yeah, so the details about the wildfire that they've been watching, there was this remote sensing expert called Pierre Marcus, I think. And he used all these visual and infrared data from the satellite, where it showed these huge amounts of smoke rising up into the atmosphere and featuring what appeared to be flames, but they're not actually flames as you and I see them. They are these infrared signals that are being released from this area suddenly.
What?
As well as the heat being given off by these blazes. I don't know if it is so, but they say that Siberia is experiencing unusually warm temperatures ever since.
I mean, global warming.
That's true.
But, okay, I'm completely freaked out by the story, but I'm not gonna lie, if I had the chance to go check it out, I probably would.
I might too.
It's just like for interest's sake, like.
But I'll be honest, if I hear those sounds, I'm running.
I mean, I have no desire to go to Siberia, but, you know, if I find myself there, I might go visit, check it out for myself.
Well, what's kind of scary is there's now, as far as I know, it's up to 3 other holes have spontaneously, but out of nowhere, suddenly opened up around Siberia, also incredibly deep, and they form perfect funnels. And none of the scientists there have been able to figure out what caused these or what's going on.
'Twas Satan.
What a lot of them note is that there's ground lying outside the holes, almost like they've exploded.
Okay.
But then there's all sorts of stories going on about people claiming to have seen like a flash of light and supposed celestial beings crashing down to Earth. So I don't know, things are getting very twisted and complicated down there in Siberia.
The photos or it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's super interesting. I actually like I said, I thought I'd maybe heard the clip that you played before, but
was that what you heard?
I think so. It sounds very similar. But I don't know any of this other information. It's super interesting. I mean, my chosen topic is nowhere near as interesting as that.
I beg to differ. I think the curse of Oak Island is one of the most interesting things and coolest things I've ever heard.
It's really cool, don't get me wrong. It's really interesting. It's not as scary. I mean, obviously the curse is the scariest part. But Oak Island is a small island in Nova Scotia, I believe.
Yes, it is.
And I can't tell you how big it is. Numbers and me, we aren't friends. But I believe it's a relatively smallish island.
From what I understand, it is.
Yeah, I'm nothing impressive. But there's believed to be buried treasure on this island. And it was first, I don't know where the story originated, but I do know that one day, back in the day, Again, numbers, not my friends. Many, many moons ago, someone came across a depression in the soil.
I actually know the lead up to that.
Okay, go for it.
Apparently, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was...
McGinnis?
Yes, I think it was McGinnis. He was quite young.
Yeah.
He was a kid. And he saw strange lights on the island one night around that area.
How do you know more about my own topic?
And he watched that through the night, and the next day, obviously when everything was gone, that's when he went to investigate, and that's when he found the depression in the sand that you're talking about.
Okay, so I didn't know about the lights and the truly fun, scary stuff, but I know that he found this depression in the dirt and started to dig up, and I think they got 10 to 30 feet into the hole.
From what I understand.
And then sort of got a little like superstitious and weird about it, and were like, let's maybe not.
Didn't it flood suddenly?
No, I think that was a bit later. Or it might have flooded, and they took that as a sort of a sign to like stop what they were doing. But I mean, over the years there have been so many different groups of people who've tried to dig through this hole.
I need to emphasize that they're like a crazy amount of people trying.
Well, I know that in my research I found out that like the sum total of investment into digging up the site ranges from somewhere crazy like $100 million.
Good grief.
And that's just over the years. But I mean, there are so many different stories as to what's buried in this hole, apparently. Some people think Marie Antoinette's jewels are buried.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
It's in also they're not sure of the exact location. There are actually different points all over Oak Island that people have tried to dig up, but the most specific one is the Money Pit.
Yes, I've heard about the Money Pit.
Yeah. So they found all sorts of weird things in there. The first thing was that they found a lot of weird different types of soil and putty and rock and wood just in layers.
See, that's like the last thing, especially for something that happened so back in the day. You just expect your like classic old pirates got onto an island, buried treasure in the sand and shipped away.
Well, that's another theory, is that it's pirate treasure that was buried there. But yeah, like I said, they found flagstones, stones with markings, coconut fibers, charcoal, putty, large stones with inscribed symbols, ancient-looking axes, fluke anchors, a mining pick, and I think one of the most recent ones was they found Spanish coins and a chest with 3 keys.
Oh, they actually found a chest?
Yeah, I mean, look, the only reason I know about Oak Island, let me just say, is my mom. She loves the show Curse of Oak Island. And she was the one who started she'd been watching this show, and she was like, listen up.
You need to do this.
You're gonna love this. And yeah, so she was the one who turned me onto this, and the people that are on this show are the most recent people to stop digging. And they're the ones who found the coins and the keys and chests and all that stuff. I think I watched the very early seasons of the shows. So I'm not sure if they found out what was in the chest but I mean, that's probably to date the most interesting thing they've found, but no one has found this supposed treasure.
I think that's what interests me most about the story. It's the fact that countless people have tried, and I'm talking like from back in the day to modern day, where we're bringing in machines and technology, and nobody has been able to get past the booby traps that the originators laid out.
Well, that's the thing. Like you mentioned earlier that when they were digging it flooded with water and stuff, and they say that that's part of the booby traps as well, is that as soon as they get past one section, it'll flood with water.
From what I understand, yeah, it's there's I think they said the island's almost laid out with what in the shape of what looks like fingers on a hand, and which is like they've used to their benefit in this booby trap, where it's leading the ocean from obviously the sea into it floods each of these tunnels each time they hit a different point of it. And to be able to come up with something like that, it's got to be just the trouble you've got to go to and the effort to create such a thing.
Well, it makes you wonder if there is a treasure, what this treasure is.
That's
it must
what I'm
be
saying. It's
so
got to be
great.
It's got to be like better than anybody can actually possibly imagine.
Well, like I said, the theories are that it could be Marie Antoinette's jewels. Some people said that it could be pirate treasure, like I said.
See, even that for me, that's like, I wouldn't go to lengths like that for things like that. I'm now thinking it's like Indiana Jones kind of like artifacts that you're finding now. Well, you're finding like the Crusaders of Lost Ark kind of stuff.
Well, the other things that they say they think are in their Shakespearean manuscripts, possibly the Holy Grail and the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, there we go. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for.
And apparently, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. When I was doing research for this, a lot of it was it sort of like went over my head, you know, with regards to them digging and they got to this level and that level, and I was sort of lost at times. But from what I can understand is every time they dig to a certain point, they get to where they think the treasure is, something breaks and it falls to another level.
Yeah, the treasure, I've read that too. It keeps dropping down another level. Also, just to think how deep these people with no technology or equipment that we have today managed to dig.
Yeah.
It's it amazes me. I've read the tale of the Curse of Oak Island, and I have to agree with you. Like, there are so many, first of all, people's attempts, as well as, like you said, the levels and layers and what happened at each, that it does become your mind is eventually like, whoa, wait, where am I?
It becomes like a blur.
It really does. So I really do actually recommend to all of you out there to go and actually read this. It's the most fascinating thing I've ever read.
It really is. And I mean, I don't think we've even touched on why it's called the Curse of Oak Island. And I don't know where this story or this thing comes from, but apparently it's said that 7 people need to die before the treasure will be revealed. And to date, 6 people have died.
Oh, we're close.
Yeah. Who's going to be the willing sacrifice?
I actually didn't know that. I didn't know there were 7 sacrifices before.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know where that comes from, but apparently 7 people need to die and the treasure will reveal itself.
I think I need to jump onto watching the show now. Like I said, we're quite close. Let's see what happens.
Well, one thing that I've heard is that people say, like, this show's been going for 7 seasons and they found nothing.
Oh my goodness.
It's like there's got to be payoff at some point.
From what I understand to this day, they still keep getting flooded in.
I mean, the last time I watched was maybe like season 3. They just like cracked open this section and all the water came in and I was like, okay, well, I feel like I've been here already.
That's the thing, that with each person that's tried, you get to the same point where like, oh, there's the water, each one goes to the same thing. And I mean, it's got to reach a point where you so fed up with getting flooded in and having like all your efforts sort of...
Well, another thing is what I've noticed with a lot of people that went to go, you know, excavate and dig up, is that they eventually ran out of funds.
Yeah, I came across that as well.
You know, they'd get to a point where they'd been excavating forever and they just didn't have the money anymore.
As well as, and again, I come back to the genius of this, when they try and pump the water out, they can't do it fast enough because it's literally coming directly from the sea.
Yeah.
Unless you're gonna pump out the whole ocean, you're not gonna get past that.
Speaking of that, though, that was one of the freakiest things for me when I was watching a couple episodes of the shows. They were sending divers down there. And
that's crazy.
I mean, I'm scared of diving already.
Yeah, me too.
But can you imagine going into this deep, dark hole in the middle of Nova Scotia?
And it's already on an island named to be cursed. And also on top of that, surely that water's so murky and... like, you can't see anything down there. There's no way. Yeah,
I don't think they really went down there to like look for anything. I think they're trying to bring stuff up. If I recall, I could be wrong.
Makes sense.
But yeah, I actually, now that I've done research into it, I actually really want to get back into the show. Because like I said, more recently they found coins and chests, and that's really interesting to me.
Just reading the story, I want to go back. Like I said, I keep getting lost because of all that happens, but I do want to go back and read it again.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, this has been super interesting. I loved hearing about yours. Like I said, I didn't know all the details, so that was super exciting for me.
And vice versa. Love the story so much. Very good choice.
Thank you. I know usually at the end of these things I always say there are so many other stories that you can go and I don't know how many other weird...
No, this is your good old classical, like, hidden treasure story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure of any other supernatural, paranormal, freaky holes in the earth there are to investigate, but
It's quite lovely having a sort of good old treasure hunt trope in the modern age.
definitely. So I think if any of these interested you, definitely go research them some more and let us know on either Facebook or YouTube or Instagram what you thought. If you found any interesting facts, our handle on all those platforms are @blendedpodcasts. So yeah, go drop us a comment. We'd love to carry on the conversation.
And hopefully we'll see you guys next week.
Freaky Fridays, hosted by Devin Beatty
And Megan Portnoy, and produced with the generous assistance of Janu Blau.
and Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.